Middle-aged grind, welcome back. And today I'm going to cover a topic I was requested to cover: a personal lines umbrella policy for insurance. And I'm going to go over some stuff here with it. And of course, I'm a State Farm agent. I mentioned that before. And generally, these policies are pretty similar with every carrier out there. And I'm going to read some of the literature of some examples here right off the State Farm website. And also, what is it? Okay, so what a personal lines umbrella policy is, it's a policy typically in $1 million increments of liability coverage on top of your underlying auto and home liability limits, okay, or a boat or anything like that. So when you have an auto insurance policy or homeowners insurance policy, automatically you have liability coverage there if you have a policy. You've heard state minimum liability limits, especially for auto. Every state's different. In Louisiana, I'm going to reference that, but I've looked, they're similar in every state. Our state liability limits on auto are $15,000 bodily injury per person, up to $30,000 per accident, and $25,000 of property damage, okay? So what that means is, if you're getting a wreck and you have insurance at minimum levels, that which is what your carrier is going to cover. So, you're at fault in an accident, you're getting a wreck, we're going to pay up to $15,000 bodily injury per person, $30,000 per accident, $25,000 property damage. The thing that should stick out to you there: $25,000 property damage is not that high. I'd venture to say half of the vehicles riding around are worth more than $25,000. So it kind of leaves you in a little bit of limbo there if you go with low coverages. Umbrella policy would be $1 million on top of your underlying liability limits. For auto, the limits that State Farm and most carriers require are $250,000 per person, $500,000 per accident of bodily injury, and $100,000 of property damage. The $1 million would go on top of that. Okay, homeowners, usually the minimum is $100,000. Every homeowner's policy I've seen usually has that on there already. But you can, get higher increments if you like. And usually, most companies, State Farm included, they start at $1 million, and I believe we go up to $5 now, in $1 million increments. Who is this for? Well, usually it's going to be for people who have a bunch of assets. Okay, you got savings, you got a house, you got retirement accounts. You're at a point in your life where you have something to lose if you're at fault in an accident. Okay. The old saying goes, you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. Who is this not for? Young kids, early in life, you're just getting started out. You don't have a lot of assets. A judgment comes on you. You don't have it, you don't have it, But if you have money in the bank and equity in your home, it could be something out there that you might worth looking into. So let me give you some of the examples they give. A personal liability umbrella policy, we call it a PLUP, can offer crucial protection in a variety of unexpected situations. The following are some common occurrences where a PLUP may protect you. Driving home, you change lanes to avoid hitting a motorcycle causing a serious accident. Several passengers in a claimant's car are injured and ask for $1.5 million in damages. So, I had a customer before on a trip, rented a car in California and caused a 5-car pileup. I can tell you that they had higher limits and they were thankful because we paid out a lot of money in that situation. While traveling over the speed limit, another vehicle pulls out in front of you. Your vehicle strikes another vehicle. Passenger in the vehicle is hospitalized for weeks. Claim for $1.2 million is submitted. During a birthday party, some of your guests are playing on a trampoline. One of the guests falls off and sustains serious injuries. Child slips and is injured while playing in your pool. The parents believe the child suffered injuries due to your negligence and decide to sue. The gate in your backyard is left open, your dog gets out and bites your neighbor has injuries, suffers trauma, files a suit alleging your potential negligence. While operating your boat, you hit a water skier causing serious injury. There are damages for injuries well over the liability limits on your boat policy. Those are just some of the examples. Now let's get into costs. For a while, even in my state in Louisiana, umbrella policies were not very expensive. It just depends on the amount of drivers, age. You get over 50 discount. It used to be in the $500-600 range a year. What happened over the past couple of years, they went up 2.5 times because they've seen a lot of claims. So those umbrella policies increased significantly. What a lot of customers did was they canceled it, and then they just upped their auto and home liability. It was a lot cheaper to do it that way. Umbrellas do offer typically a little bit more protection on the types of things when it comes to slander. So getting back to the personal liability umbrella policy and the cost, I had a sales leader when I was in Oklahoma, and his mother was an agent, and he kind of presented this to us, and I saw a lot of them this way, so one of the things you have to do sometimes that the cost is a little more than just say like it's $300 a year in your state, because you got to get that auto liability up. You might have 50, 150, you need 250, 500, 100. And he would give a scenario, kind of go like this. What if someone sued you for, $1 million because you're at fault in an accident, and you could write $1,000 check, and we would take care of it, and would cost you anything more today. And what that meant, basically raising your collision deductible, say from $250 to $1,000, and then that cost, with the umbrella and the extra discounts would pretty much offset it. Or it might cost you an extra $5, $10 a month to have $1 million extra in liability coverage to sleep at night. Most people can write $1,000 check, if their car's damaged, but they can't come up with millions of dollars. So really it makes a lot of sense, guys. And like with us, you get class 50 discounts. If you're over 50, you don't have youthful operators, you have a clean record for 5 years. They're usually in your state, check your rates. Louisiana's a little bit different animal, but I know probably up north, different states in the Midwest, you're probably talking $300-400 a year. And if it's the money's a thing, raise your our collision deductibles up $500, and it probably would offset the cost. But it's just a good sleep at night insurance. Also, too, if you're in an accident and you're deemed at fault and you have one of these policies, or if you have high liability limits, okay, on your current auto or home policy, guess who's on the hook if you're at fault? That company. State Farm's on the hook. That's our money, okay? If I have $1 million in liability limits and I'm at fault, State Farm has basically taken that risk. Guess what? In my representation, I'm going to get the best attorneys on this because this is State Farm's money that they're going to pay out, right? So I have seen it a few times in my 20-year career. Low liability limits, someone gets in an accident, doesn't have enough coverage, and they get a judgment against them and have to pay, and that's a tough thing. So I know everybody's always looking for every nickel and dime, but this is when I think, how can an agent, all right, and in the AI world and everything's automated, we don't know how to talk to anybody. Look, I have a phone number, I have a office, I have a secretary, I have you can call me on my cell. Sit down and talk with your agent about this stuff, because this, we talk about risk and risk aversion. If you worked your whole life to get a nest egg and live a comfortable retirement and do what you want to do, you need to make sure you're protected. And driving, guys, is a privilege. And if you're, even an accident is an accident. You're not intending to harm anybody or hurt anybody. But I mean, look, I've been doing this almost 20 years now. I've had customers come in here with all kind of stuff. Or one guy, he accidentally hit a guy on a bicycle at night. You know, he wasn't drinking. He wasn't, you know, anything like he was at fault. Didn't get arrested, but you know, the guy was in the hospital for months. He felt terrible. Stuff happens, okay? And then you could be liable. So I think it's a good product to look at. It definitely should be part of your overall financial picture and worth a conversation. Even if you don't go with an umbrella policy of $1 million, if you're sitting at 25, 50, 25 liability limits, guys, just raising that up, you know, 100, 300, 100, it might cost you an extra $10 a month or something on average. It's worth it. It really is, to sleep at night. If something happens, you know you're covered, you know, at least better than what you have. So I hope this help explains the personal lines umbrella policy, what they are and what they do. This is in excess of your underlying liability limits on auto, home, boat, recreational vehicles, all those things. So, and I'll be doing more of these, and I hope to see you real soon on the Middle Age Grind.